How do you ensure that work coaches have the time to make sure that they're not pushing people into any job, but that we are making sure people get good work and good jobs with good terms and conditions?
Well, this is one of the whole points of our reform of job centres, is that we better match the people who need work with the jobs that they need to get.
So the DWP wants an 80% employment rate. Ambitious, considering we're the only G7 country still below pre-pandemic employment levels. Their brilliant solution? Cut work coach meetings because apparently they don't make a difference. Then immediately claim these same coaches are phenomenal at getting people into work. Meanwhile, they're worried employers won't hire due to national insurance rises, but insist businesses are desperate to recruit. Classic Westminster logic. Slash the thing that doesn't work, then praise it as essential. At least Switzerland's laughing at 80% employment while we're stuck explaining why 75% is actually quite good. Really. Watch the video, and before you start, if you haven't yet, hit like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay updated and drop your thoughts below. Let's hold the government accountable.
Thank you. And we're over to Jo Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. So the Public Accounts Committee recently said it would be very challenging to meet the government's aim of an 80% employment rate. So given the budget that the department has, do you think the 80% employment rate is feasible and or achievable?
Well, it's definitely a stretching target, but I'm not to state the obvious, I'm not in politics to be coasting along, you know? We want that stretching target. We've said it's a big ambition over a decade, but actually if our employment rate I think is just over 75%, but there are other countries, Switzerland and the Netherlands, who are over 80%, Japan I think is just under 80%, Germany 78%, so we do want to be up there with the best. I don't think it's acceptable that our employment rate has not got back to pre-pandemic levels. We're the only country in the G7 where that hasn't happened. And, if you look back at the original Beveridge report, Beveridge said social security alone would never be enough to give people a good life. It needed to be combined with full and fulfilling employment, those are my words, not his, and an NHS that's as much about rehabilitation as cure. Now, actually, those principles remain true today. So it is stretching, and it should be, because people deserve a chance to work. And actually, we have seen in the 1 year since this government was elected, 500,000 more people in employment. That is, the employment rate has gone up. Economic inactivity has come down by 300,000. We've created 380,000 more jobs. There is a long, long way to go, but we have set our job centres new metrics. It's a complete change for our job centres. Reduce the disparity in the employment gap between different regions. The employment rate for lone parents, for disabled people. We want to get it up right across the board. Sorry, Peter.
No, I was going to go in exactly that same point that you were making, Secretary of State. That the Secretary of State and Ministerial team have set us 8 metrics, which get into the heart of this, because there are parts of the country where indeed the employment rate is above 80%, and there are groups in the country where employment rate is above 80%. The focus needs to be on those places or those demographic groups where it is below, where there is that gap. And that is something that it gives us the thing to aim for, doesn't it? The sort of interim stages before we get finally to 80%. And we've been absolutely set that framework by the ministerial team, and we're driving towards it.
Just on this point about the focus of job centres, so the Minister for Employment told us that one of her priorities is for work coaches to have more time with claimants. So subsequently, Permanent Secretary, you told the Public Accounts Committee, because I was at the evidence session, that the DWP will be reducing the length and frequency of many work coach meetings because the evidence showed it does not make a difference to outcomes. So I guess my question, Secretary of State, is if work coach support doesn't help people find work, why is it mandatory for millions of people to meet with work coaches?
Shall I build on that? Because, Ms Baxter was, as you say, at the Public Accounts Committee session in May, where we were talking about the creation of the Jobs and Careers Service and the opportunity there to take our existing resource of work coaches, who are focused primarily on the intensive work search group within Universal Credit, and move beyond that, because as the Secretary of State has said, our priority is to go beyond just the intensive work search group to support people, particularly people with health conditions, who previously have been left out of any support at all. So what we've been doing as part of the Job Centre activity review is try to work out where we can best deploy our work coach resource so that those people for whom that resource could be more closely targeted enables us to free up resource for those groups who currently don't get it at all. So some of the things we're doing have been to reduce some support where it's been less needed, but that's to free up resource elsewhere, and 1,000 work coaches are being released to support people on the Universal Credit Health Journey as part of this programme. So that's where it's going. It's to support additional support elsewhere. I was again at the Public Accounts Committee on Monday, and the Chair was asking me again about this, particularly it's the claimant commitment review, claimant commitment stage, where we've reduced from 50 minutes below that. What I said is that where you have a situation where a claimant needs longer, if a work coach is thinking, well, I'm 20 minutes in, actually I could do with that extra half hour, then that can normally be accommodated because we want to do the right thing. But it's really about trying to make sure we don't spend time on the things that add small amounts of value to free up our work coaches, as I say, the 1,000 work coaches who are going to be putting in place over the course of this year to support customers on the health journey.
I just wanted to add a tiny bit to this, which is we did some fantastic work, additional work coach time, which is precisely to what is the evidence when we free up our work coaches to focus on those with health conditions and disabilities. And we found that just by calling, asking if they wanted to come in for a meeting, we got 3% more people into work. Now 3% sounds small, but of 2.8 million people currently out of work due to long-term sickness, that's really, really good. But even better than that, 3% more in work, but mental well-being improved. We were actually, some of them, referring them on to mental health services. Financially better off because we referred people to debt advice to get the finances back on track. So we've got a resource. Resources aren't infinite. Our work coaches themselves say we don't need to focus on those people. We can do that over the phone or online. These are the people we need to spend more time with. And that's the amazing thing about them, our work coaches, is they know what's what. They know their local economy, they know what people need. And we do actually have evidence that if you spend more time with people, refer them on to the right services, they can get work and they can be financially better off.
So just my final part of this section is just, so I'm a former trade union official. I believe in good work. So not just any job, but jobs where people have good terms and conditions, where they feel secure, where they are developed, where they have agency and a voice and security. So how do you, and I do agree, work coaches are phenomenal. I've met many in my local job centre. How do you ensure that work coaches have the time to make sure that they're not pushing people into any job, but that we are making sure people get good work and good jobs with good terms and conditions?
Well, this is one of the whole points of our reform of job centres, is that we better match the people who need work with the jobs that they need to get, and ideally to get on in their jobs too. I'd say it's not just about what we do within the DWP. We've got our employment rights legislation to improve the quality of work. We're creating more good jobs. We've invested, £113 billion over the SR in building new homes and clean energy. But we're also looking at what we can do as a department with other government departments. I've already met with Ed Miliband and everyone who's involved in the clean energy workforce strategy to say, okay, you're going to be creating these jobs. How do we get our people into those jobs? What's the partnership we can build? Similarly, with the construction industry, because we're building 1.5 million new homes, but there's much more we can do. We're investing in our water infrastructure, creating new jobs. On defence, I think that this is about government saying we've got to be much more joined up. And the DWP, we want to go out there and do a deal with those employers and say, we are overhauling our approach to employers. You know, it's not acceptable that only 1 in 6 employers has ever used a job centre to recruit. So we're overhauling that. We've got a dedicated team now in the department. They're going to have single account managers. We want to do much more as a partnership there. So there's a long way to go, but we have made a good start in this first year in office.
And in the job centre, I mean, I regularly sit alongside work coaches in job centres, and the conversation is all about, well, what can you do? Let's understand your skills, let's understand your employment history and your aspirations and what you want to do. And connected to employers in the way the Secretary of State has described, but one of the particular successes that we've had over the last few years is sector-based work academies, where we work closely with employers to give our claimants the opportunity to have work experience and training, leading to a guaranteed job interview at the end of that. And there were over 80,000 of those over the course of last year. That's directly connecting people to those roles. And many of those are in the sectors that the Secretary of State has described: good jobs, growing jobs, good opportunities for people.
Nick Kruger.
Very quickly, job coaches tell me one real problem they've got is employers concerned about the national insurance rise. Has the department done an analysis of the likely impact on both the supply of jobs but also on wages in consequence of the national insurance rise itself?
Well, actually, my experience of talking to employers, even since that rise, is many are desperate to recruit. You know, they've got jobs that they really need skills for. We've got people who are out of work who we need to get those skills. So, as I said earlier, we want to make sure that we much better match the needs of employers with the right people who are coming through from us. And actually, I know that businesses, are under a lot of pressure. But actually, the ones that I've spoken to are still much more likely to talk about the challenges of recruiting, not that they are not recruiting at all. They are desperate to get people to work in those, particularly in those growth sectors that the government is funding.
I just asked the Permanent Secretary what work the department has done to assess the impact of the national insurance rise on the jobs market.
Those assessments are done by the ABR, and they were published alongside those fiscal statements in the normal way.
Don't forget to like this video if you're tired of politicians treating Parliament like amateur hour. Subscribe and click the bell icon for more accountability breakdowns, and drop your thoughts below.